Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Sports Card Nation back again, episode 212. But first off, I hope everyone out there had a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. Whatever holiday you celebrate was a good one here. Got a pretty cool, my wife normally does not buy presents that are either card related or show related. She doesn't know a lot about that stuff, but she did get me a lighted sign that says Sports Card Nation. It'll be behind me most times whenever I do any kind of if I'm on video, and really cool gift from her that she thought about what I do in the show, and like I said, not something she normally does. Not that she doesn't care, she just doesn't know a lot about that stuff, but she was thinking what she could do, knowing what I do, and I got that amongst other things. But I thought I'd share that with you out there, and hopefully you got, it's not about that. That's not the reason for the season, as they say, but it's always fun to give and sometimes even receive as well. We got a great guest today, gentleman. I've known him quite a while, Lyn Lake. He's the promoter of the Syracuse shows, has done it over 20 years. We're going to talk about the dynamics of that, everything that goes into it, some of the pratfalls and hiccups that can happen, and a sign he put on the door at his recent December show made some national news. It went a little viral, saying that, if you're coming in as a collector, you should sell, and you want to sell to the dealers, that's fine, but collector-to-collector sales are frowned upon. And it was a hot button topic in the hobby, and we're gonna talk about that sign and where it comes from, why you put it up, and all that stuff. So I think you'll find the conversation interesting, whether you're a promoter or someone that just attends shows. It just gives sort of a behind-the-scenes look at everything that's entailed with putting on a show.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Hi, this is Danny Blair with Baltimore Sports Collectibles, and I love what I do because the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Pat Hughes, Cubs announcer, coming to you from the Sports Card Shop in beautiful New Buffalo, Michigan. The Gocher family has built an incredible place here for collectors to buy, sell, and trade cards and memorabilia. Be sure to stop by and let them show you around. TheSportsCardShop.com, connecting sports, athletes, the hobby, and collectors around the world.
All right, happy to have this next gentleman on the Sports Card Shop at Moco, a guest line. I've known him many, many, many years. He's a busy guy. He just did a relocation as well, and he's the promoter of the shows I do here. I call my home shows here in Syracuse. Happy to be joined by Mr. Lyn Lake. Lyn, welcome.
Thanks, John. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We just, completed, or you just completed. I just showed up and got to sell a few things, but the Collectors Fest, the mega show, number 85, huge show, the biggest one you do each year. It's kind of a combination of not just sports cards, but toys, games, and almost anything collectible. You did a great job bringing in attractions with the Ghostbusters car. I saw some Star Wars folks rolling around, walking around, stormtroopers, R2-D2. I almost felt like I was was on the set of a new movie. SGC in coordination with both of us, allowed me to bulk sub, and that was that debuted at this show as well. But one thing I want to talk about, you, Lyn, that's a bigger show, right? Your biggest, but even your other shows at 110 tables, right? There's people think you just you unlock the doors and that's all you do and collect admission. And as someone who's done a few shows as a promoter, nothing on par with the likes of you, but thinks it's easy. And I think we both know, me more from the dealer side of the table, that it's not as easy. Kind of talk a little bit about that. Talk about the show that you just put on and all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, we started promoting shows back in 1986, my senior year in high school, and I was part of a baseball card collecting club in Cortland, New York, and they were looking at doing a show, and I was taking a business class, and I had to write a business plan on how to create a business. So I decided to do it on running a baseball card show, and that's kind of how we got started. After that first show, unfortunately the card club didn't really continue. We lost some members, so I decided to continue doing shows, and that's when CNY Promotions was formed, Central New York Promotions. And so the Collectors Mega Show that we just had, we do it every December. It's our largest show. We combine, as you said, the sports memorabilia side along with our toys and comics and gaming. And we had 248 tables. We had over 1,000 people through the door, which is our third largest show that we've had in attendance. And it had a tremendous response, I think, not only from the vendors. Most of the vendors said they had a tremendous show. And we brought a variety of different things in. We have Lawrence Moulton from Syracuse legend who came in and signed autographs, and we had a baseball author there from the Utica, wrote a book about the Utica Blue Sox. We had you there hosting with SGC, taking cards to be graded, which was awesome. Something we've never done at our shows. We've tried to get some grading companies there, but it's tough now because it costs them a lot to travel.
Yeah.
And they really want to do the real big shows, the nationals or the big regional shows. And I get that. For us, our show is big, but it's not big for them. So by having SGC represented there through you was great attraction. And then, of course, we also had the Ghostbuster car and a TARDIS, and we had several comic book artists there. And it was a really good attraction. Our regular shows, Collectors Fest, which is 110 tables, and our Toy Fest, which is also 110 tables. It's a little bit smaller show, but we still get a decent crowd. So back in March of this year, we had Devin Singletary from the Buffalo Bills there, and we had over 800 people through the door, which is great. When we don't really have a big name guest or an autograph guest, we usually average between 350 to 500 people, depending on the weather and the season. And then back in April, we had Eric Devendorf, former SU player, as well. And we've had some other guests. There are other shows in New York State that bring in real big names and bring in 10, 15, 20 guests. My philosophy is I think that's for my shows, that's too much because it takes a lot of money away from the vendors, and the vendors are a big part of the show, and they're the attraction as well. So this way, we bring in one guest, maybe two, leave some money in the pocket for the collectors so that they can spend at the vendor tables, also meet somebody and get an autograph. As far as planning shows, I've already started planning for 2023. All my shows are at the New York State Fairgrounds, so I'm competing against other show dates as well to try to lock in a building. So the dates that I had this year, 2 of them, I couldn't get the same weekends next year because somebody else beat me to it and signed up, and I started planning my shows for next year back in May of this for 2023. Other things that are involved is, the building comes as a shell. You got to rent tables and chairs and set them up and tear them down. Insurance is very costly. Advertising has changed so much over the years. We do a lot with social media, but we also do direct emails and direct mailings from the people who come to our show. So these are people we know that have been to the shows, and so we do direct messaging to them, and then we do a coupon where they bring back their flyer or their email to get $1 off admission. That helps track where people are finding our information. So it does take a lot of planning. Like you said, you don't just show up and unlock the doors and boom, everybody's there. It's months and months of planning.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on some of that stuff, Lyn, because people, and in their defense, right? It's not necessarily their job to know all this stuff, but I do think people sometimes who attend shows don't realize, all the work and logistics and stuff that go into putting putting on the show. Like you said, you have to plan that far in advance for the following year while you're putting on shows in the current year. And even then, you're not guaranteed, like you said, to get always the dates you want.
Time to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more with Lyn Lake after that.
Okay. Everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares on some of the world's most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia, starting from just $5. For a Mickey Mantle 1952, PSA 10s, Will Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform, to 101 Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between. Collectible creates never-seen-before access and opportunities for all. Let's enjoy the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Happy to be back with more with promoter Lyn Lake.
For those who aren't from Syracuse, they won't, I'll enlighten them. If you're from Syracuse, this isn't breaking news, but obviously, like you said, you have it on the fairgrounds property. That's where the New York State Fair is held every year for, I believe, like 14 or 16 days, in the summer. So, those dates are obviously off the table, and dates around it too, right? Even though that's when the fair is actually going on, they have to get that set up. And if you think, a 248 table shows hard, if you've ever been to New York State Fair, you realize the work that has to go on. So that starts even probably as even setting things up, not the planning. The planning, like you say, probably years in advance, but even for the fair, months in advance as far as installing different things and getting, that property ready for millions of people or, million people and 14 to 16 days of events and shows and vendor setups and all that stuff that goes with it. So that's, I sometimes I hear people complain like, why isn't there more summer shows or around these dates? And those are some of the reasons why, right? And then you get into the winter season, which has really just begun. You're in New Mexico now, and you're not getting the white stuff we are here, Lynn. Which I'm sure maybe you miss it a little bit, probably not too much. So so it's then you got winter, right? And you got dealers, I'll let you speak to this. I'm fortunate. I live 4.5 miles from the fairgrounds, so I'm a bad example. But you got dealers traveling in from hours away, if not further. Some may stay even in hotels. So it's easy for me to say, hey, do a show in January or February, because I don't have to travel much. But winters in Central New York can be, depending on the year, can be harsh, and people don't always like as long as people live here, they always complain about the temperature. So when it gets cold, people don't always like to come out. So having a show in the winter is not as easy or maybe as successful as people would present it to be. I know I rambled on there just a little bit, touching on what I said, like dealers traveling in and those summer and winter dates that, you're working against someone else's schedule.
We did try a couple of summer shows and they just didn't do well. Summers in Central New York are so short with kids in school and going off to college, and they start earlier in August. And you want to spend as much time as you can outdoors or vacationing, and they just didn't do well. So we decided to stick with just the fall and spring times. We did do some, our very first one at the fairgrounds was in February. It was February 2nd of 1990. And we had 3,200 people through the door. And we didn't have any autograph guests. And that was our first big one. We had done smaller shows throughout, and there wasn't really a lot of big shows in upstate New York. Down by the city there were, but so we gave it a try, and it went awesome. And then it just kind of took off from there. We tried this summer right after that, brought in a couple wrestlers, Tony Atlas and George the Animal Steel, and a couple others, and the attendance just wasn't great. So we decided after that just to stick with fall and springtime, because in Central New York, you just never know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, heck, in springtime, I remember it snowed on Mother's Day one year. So I joke, Syracuse is the only city you can use your air condition and your heater potentially in the same 24-hour time span. So that'll describe the weather for anyone that doesn't know.
You had mentioned that I now live in New Mexico. I moved out here back in May of this summer, basically to be closer to family. My daughter and grandsons live out here. I wanted to be closer to them, but I still plan on doing the shows. I've been doing them since 1986, and I still have plans to do in 2023. I have 7 shows planned between Collectors Fest, Toy Fest, and the Mega Show. So I'll still be traveling back to New York to do those shows, and I still have roots in Central New York.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to say. When you sent out that email, to all the vendors, kind of making us aware of your move and that it was still going to be business as usual. Well, the first thing you read when someone's moving from New York to New Mexico, that's quite a jaunt, right? You think the future of the show, right? What's happening? Is this saying, hey, this has been a great run, but I'm moving on to some other things, and then as obviously you read it more and you realize you're still going to do it and be involved. And then I was thinking that, I wasn't sure. I remember getting that letter. I'm like, okay, he's going to do it from New Mexico. I didn't realize you were coming in each time, which is really cool. I thought you were just going to try to do it remotely. And I was thinking, man, that's going to be, I got to, curiosity. I'm like, can you pull that off? But, there is a lot of stuff that goes into setting up the room or the building with tables and having that all designing it, right? You use multiple buildings in the fairgrounds depending on the show. So you have to sort of accommodate and redesign the floor plan and who's going to be aware. And now, I'm a dealer, right? You got everyone always wants it their way. So now you got different egos. Maybe, hey, can I be here? I didn't like it there. I need to move. And so you're dealing with all these gears, speaking of speak to kind of the vendors and the dealers, some of those things you encounter, and also how far do something, like for me, I'm close, but for some of the other guys I set up with, where are some of these dealers even coming in from to come here to Syracuse and set up?
Sure. All over New York State, we have some vendors from Pennsylvania and Massachusetts that do come in. Even up north, I moved from the Potsdam, New York area, and there's 2 vendors that came from farther north from there that come down and do the show. So it's great that you get that variety. In each show, we do have a lot of the same vendors at each show, but then we also do get a variety of new ones.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Introducing the only auction house dedicated exclusively to the cards of the 1990s. Josh Adams and John Linden have created an auction company solely for the rare, scarce, and hard-to-find inserts and parallels of the 1990s. Whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or hockey, 90s auctions will have it. Each auction will consist of smaller lots between 100 and 120 lots, so your cards won't get lost in the shuffle. Founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and integrity, 90s auction was created by collectors for collectors. Register and consign today at 90sauctions.com. That's 90s auctions.com.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
Talking about the building and the show. So what gets challenging is when I do the Toy Fest on a Saturday, and then the very next day I do the Collectors Fest on the same weekend. So we set up the building on Friday, and then we do the Toy Fest on Saturday, and we do have about a dozen vendors that do both shows. They do have product that meets for what the clientele is looking for, the collectors are looking for at each one. But then you're moving out the toy vendors on Saturday night, and a lot of the sports vendors want to move in Saturday night and into Sunday. So the table configuration stays the same, but you are moving some things around where vendor had 3 tables, and then the Collector Fest vendor that's coming in has 2 and 1. So there is some changeover. So that makes for a really long weekend. And then usually by 6 a.m. Monday morning, I'm on a flight back west to get back home. So it makes for a long weekend, but it's something I enjoy, and it's a lot of fun to do. I get a chance to meet a lot of nice people, collector wise and vendor wise.
Yeah,
so
no doubt. You don't have to sell anybody out, but vendor wise, how often do you have a dealer, someone like myself or someone else, either complain or want to be moved next show, or hey, if I don't have a different location, I'm not coming, or accommodation conversation? Like how much of that, is it always smooth, or do you ever have, different things that pop up?
It pops up. So I try to send a survey out after every show to get feedback from the vendors. This past show, I had 98 vendors set up at it, and I only got 4 responses back from my questionnaire to get feedback from people. But a lot of times people will come up to me and say, hey, I like your show, but where I was just didn't work for me. Can I be somewhere else? Or I have a vendor that has the exact same product as me next to me. Can I be moved? Of course, everybody wants to be near the front door, but not everybody can be. So you try to accommodate everybody, and then and certain people want electricity. Electricity is only available around the outside walls. They're not in the islands. So you try to do your best. I send a questionnaire before each show to say, hey, what do you need? Do you want your tables in a straight line? Do you want electricity? Where do you want to be set up? Any special request? And for the most part, it works out. You try your best. And then if I can't, I try to reach out to the vendor and say, hey, I know you requested this, but I can't meet it for this reason, and let them know ahead of time so there's no surprises the morning of the show.
Yeah. And again, I really wanted you to touch on that just so people understand the process. There's, you're working on two sides of the table in a sense, right? You got collectors, you're responsible for putting on a good event, and then you have the other side of the table with the vendors, and it's tough to win the whole room, but and like you said, dealers are traveling in from out of state as well as even far distances within New York State. So there's a lot that you're responsible for, and you're trying to be accountable to. You spoke about autograph guests, and when I remember when you first started, it was it was almost at least one, if not multiple, at every show. And then I don't want to speak for you. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think, back then, compared to prices nowadays to get those things accomplished is a lot different. I think the autograph industry sort of boomed crescendo too as well. And players and retired athletes, those prices to have them come out go up. And, it's not just paying them, to sign autographs. You got to get them there. Unless they're already local to Syracuse, there's travel involved to bring those athletes or celebrities in. So and then I know you kind of went away from that, and understandably so. But you, again, like you've talked about, you've recently kind of brought some guys back in, and it's nice. It's nice to see again. Kind of talk about the dynamics of an autograph guest for a promoter.
Sure. Back when we were doing the autograph guests more frequently, back then the prices were a lot cheaper and more affordable. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to say all of a sudden, but then they started doing more shows downstate, down by the city, where they were paying more to appear at the shows, or getting more money to appear at the shows. And then all of a sudden they realized, hey, I can get this amount of money. So then they were charging us upstate more money, and it wasn't in a price realm where we could afford to do it. And we had a couple malls in the central New York area that are no longer open, that would sponsor bringing in some former Yankee players and offer free autographs. So if the mall can do it, why can't CNY Promotions do it, or XYZ promoter do it? Well, the malls have a little bit more deeper pockets. They might be getting a sponsor or somebody to do it. So it does change. I did have the opportunity. We had Stone Cold Steve Austin do a private signing with us. It was the day after he won the heavyweight championship belt, and he was in Syracuse doing a Monday Night Raw TV taping. And so we were able to get him and do a signing. The only thing it cost us for him was a hotel room, and then we paid him by piece for signing autographs. We've had other Yankee players, and then I've had some people. Hall of Frames has brought in a player, and 24/7 has brought in a player. And they've brought him into the show, and we've provided the space for them and the advertising, and then they keep all the money from the autographs and do the mail order and stuff like that. So we've offered that opportunity as well. But autograph players appearances, even non-sports, is getting real popular. From TV actors to coming in and signing autograph, and their prices aren't cheap either. And you got to pay for their airfare and their hotel. You're hoping that they don't have another obligation that comes up for that they're contractual for their TV taping or movies or whatever they're getting into. So it can be challenging. Luckily, for the most part, I think I only had one or two that had to cancel at the last minute or no shows way back when, because those things do happen. But we stopped doing it because we started losing money at it. and the prices got to the point where it was just too high. So we decided that not to do it any longer, because I work 50 plus hours a week by a full-time job, and trying to do mail orders and do all that and have stuff online. It's very time consuming. And for those promoters that can do it, God bless them. That works for them. But for CNY Promotions right now, that just doesn't work for us.
Yeah, and you make a great point, right? You can lose money on these deals based on what these costs are, right? And where do the costs have to be passed on to? It's the consumer, right? So you can get player A superstar and pay whatever that fee might be, but then you gotta pass it on to the consumer. You paid more. Now I gotta ask this: do I want to do that? And you made a great point too, right? The more that goes to the autograph side of the house, the most likely less going to sales at the table. And so you got to find that balance. And even getting an autograph guest, right? There's no guarantee how many autograph tickets will sell. So you could lose almost before they get there. There's a lot more risk involved, I think, with the autograph guest type of deal than just the show itself. And so you gotta be smart, you gotta be strategic, and think about what's this going to cost, or what's this going to cost the consumer, and is it worth it for everybody, right? Myself, the celebrity, the athlete, and the people attending my shows. There's a lot of gears right there.
The only guarantee money is to the guest, that he or she is guaranteed to get X amount of dollars, and regardless if you sell one autograph or 100 autographs or whatever, but the guest gets paid ahead of time, and then it's your job to try to make that money back, which doesn't always work.
Yeah, no doubt. So like you said, you've kind of done it a little bit more again recently. I think the attendees of the show like that. And speaking from the dealer side, I like it because it brings more people through the door, right? And that's what a card show should be about, right? For everyone involved. So
someone's at my door. I've got to get that. Be right back.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Sports Card Nation has returned.
You spoke about how you got into show promotion. I'm gonna put you a little bit, on the not the hot seat, but catch you off guard. Do you remember your very first show? Do you remember the details? Were you nervous? Were you scrambling, wanting it to go well? Can you share as much of from the first show you ever put on and what you can remember?
Sure. Yeah, it was 1986. It was at the Cortlandville Mall in Cortland, New York. It was in a little strip mall. And we had Johnny Mides there. It was through the Baseball Card Club. And I'd gone to a couple of other shows in the Central New York area just to kind of see what they were about and to try to solicit vendors. Social media wasn't what it is now back in 1986. So it was going to shows and, typing up on a typewriter or the old-fashioned computers a flyer, and you didn't have the graphics and stuff. So it was different than it was now, trying to find vendors and whatnot. But I remember it was a good experience. It left a good taste in my mouth and wanting to try it some more. So we started doing a monthly show we called it the First Sunday Show in Ithaca, New York. We did a bi-monthly show in Cortland. We went up to the Auburn Finger Lakes Mall. We did a show in Watertown. That's kind of where we kind of called it Central New York Promotions, because they were all in Central New York. And that started in 1986. And then late 1989, there wasn't really any big shows going on that really drew people from all over. So we did our first show at the fairgrounds, and we sold about 150 tables, I think it was, and we had an incredible response and we just did one day. I have a lot of people ask, why don't you do 2-day shows? And so I look at, when we do a small show in one day and we get 350, 400, 450, 500 people, if you did 2 days, are you really getting more people, or are you just taking that 500 and dividing it by the 2 days?
Yeah.
But you're doubling your expense. You've got another day of rental for the building and the chairs and tables and everything else. So it doesn't really change much. And so we just did, done one day. And the Collectors Mega Show we did from 9:30 to 3, and by 2:30, almost 3 o'clock, the building, I wouldn't say cleared right out, but there wasn't as many people in there because they all came early. And that's what we're finding. A lot of people are coming early on, and we've been lucky. All 3 of our fall shows, the Buffalo Bills have not played on that Sunday.
Yes.
They either had the Thursday night game, Sunday night game, or Monday night game. So that plays a lot into it. Hope, if you're not a Bills fan, but you've got, you follow other teams, you're gonna come early, and that's why we started our shows at 9:30, and that plays into effect.
Yeah, no doubt. And while I'm not a Bills fan, I know we conversated at the last show. If the Bills are at home in like a normal time slot, 1:30 hits at the show, and we live in a heavy Bills area, it kind of clears out. So when you get those nice breaks, I'll call them, or good bounce, right, where the Bills have already played on a Thursday night, or they're not scheduled to play Monday night, or they're scheduled for Sunday night football, where all times when the show's not going on, I don't know if I'm imagining it, but you sort of can feel and see the difference there. And if they played Thursday night and they won that game, right, those fans are coming to the show maybe in a better mood and spending a little bit more money as well. So you've done this, doing some quick math. You've done this basically 37 years. Does it get easier, or is this just each new iteration kind of present new obstacles, new challenges?
The shows have definitely changed pre-COVID, and then definitely after COVID. Like I mentioned earlier when I first started, there wasn't the social media and the internet. Now we used to do a lot of newspaper advertising, and if somebody's listening on here that works at a newspaper, I apologize, but newspaper advertising just doesn't work for me any longer. It's they just don't have the paper every day, and you got to hope someone reads it, and it's very expensive. So we do a lot of paid advertising on social media, and that has really helped. We did paid advertising for this last show in the Buffalo market, Rochester market, Syracuse market, Binghamton, and Albany area. We spent about $1,200, and we had a huge reach. And the nice thing with Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising, you can see the reach and the responses, and how many opens and likes and shares, and that really paid those advertisings paid for themselves. And like I said, we have over 500 collectors on our email list and our mailing list that we do direct mail to and direct emails to. And those are people that have come to your shows before, so we'll send them information about. But the shows have changed a lot. The cost keeps going up for everything: insurance, rental of tables, and then with me flying in now, the cost of airfare and hotel. And then I have a friend. I have four other friends that help me. So I give them a couple bucks and maybe a hotel room and some meals to help me. So the expenses do add up. But the shows have changed a lot, and the collectors have changed. They're smarter now than they've ever been before. They're walking around, with their cell phones, and they can look things up right then and there, which is great. It's great for the hobby. More shows now. Back in the day there wasn't as many shows, but now right along 90 from east to west, you're going to have a show in New York State, if not two, every weekend. That's going on. So that's good for the collectors too, which is great for the hobby. During COVID, people were getting those extra checks, those COVID checks, and people started turning around, investing into the hobby and buying. And you were seeing more people going to shows and buying product and collecting, but also investing and hoping to, get some of their money back on that. So the shows have really changed, and the hobby has changed a lot, but I think for the most part for the good.
Yep. And nothing's a utopia, right? It's never going to be exactly perfect, or go exactly as always as planned. But if there's more ups than downs, or more good stories than bad stories, that's what you hope for. So,
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group, or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
We talked about, the mega show, Collectors Fest number 85, and somebody, I kind of tipped you off that your sign on the door was going sort of viral and becoming sort of a hobby hot button topic. For those that watching the video, I want to put this on the screen, Lynn, and for those listening, I'm going to read it. This is, on the door coming in to Collectors Fest. It says, notice only vendors that have paid for tables at today's show may sell items at today's show. Collectors may sell items to the vendors that have paid for tables at today's show, but may not sell items to other collectors in the building. Now, I saw, Card Porn, who's a very followed account in the hobby, posted this, and he could post a picture of a mouse and he'd get 200 comments. That's just how many far. But so we posted this and more or less said, what do we think about this? I don't know where he got it from. I don't believe he was at your show personally. So someone must have sent it to him and said, maybe upset. We have a new era of collectors that come in with their cases. I don't find that I've bought stuff from those folk. But some of the negative comments that I saw pertaining to this were like, oh, it leaves, right off the bat, leaves a bad taste in a collector's mouth. Or, does the promoter even want people coming there? It's almost like this big, fat rule before you come in. That's kind of a Debbie Downer. As someone who's done a lot of shows and myself, I know where this is coming from. Just speak to that. For when I saw the sign and found out, hey, this is from the Collectors Fest. I took my dealer stance and I commented like, this is to protect really everybody. Too long to even comment on that, right? So I'll hand it over to you as the promoter. Like, where does sign come? And it's not new. I just found out talking to you before we even recorded this. This is a sign you've had up. Well, you'll say how long, but it's not a new sign. But I've never seen it because I come in like a dealer's interest on the pre-setup day and the setup. So I'm not walking through the same door. So I don't always see the sign. But kind of talk about, what the meaning of it is. I think that's where some of the misunderstanding is with some folks.
Sure. So what makes a successful show? A good experience by both the collector and the vendor. And if they have good experiences, they'll keep coming back. So that sign, that's nothing new. I've had up about a year before COVID. Then during COVID, everybody knows the shows kind of came, a lot of things came to a stop for about a year and a half. And then we kept putting it up. So it's nothing that I've put in advertising. It's nothing that I've put on my Facebook page or my social media or my website, but just at the show. So I've had several vendors that have come to me and complain. And one complaint, let's say, John, I come up to your table and I'm looking at this Michael Jordan rookie card. You and I are negotiating. And this other collector comes up and says, hey, I can give that to you for half price cash right now. And so you as a vendor who spent a lot of money to be there that day just lost out on that sale. Now, let's say that happens numerous times. So from a collector standpoint, when you're talking about selling stuff to other people, you didn't set up and sell, paid money to be there. You paid an entrance fee. But that's for the right and privilege to come in. I have a lot of expenses involved in promoting that show. The vendor has a lot of money tied up in the tables. And then if you have friends or someone to come to help you, you got to pay for. So it's really so that it protects the vendor and the collector. So if a collector comes in, and now let's say the collector gets a bad card, let's say it's a trimmed card or it's a fake.
Yeah.
Where does that liability? Does it come back on me as the promoter? I'm not the one, So by me having that up there, it kind of protects me as the promoter. As a vendor, if a vendor comes in and sells some bad cards, then I can come back to the vendor and I can help facilitate that with the collector as well. I know this is kind of an extreme example, but you pay an admission to come into my shows. Does that give you the right to do it? Well, you pay admission to go into an SU basketball game. Does that give you the right to go in and sell SU merchandise? Or you pay admission to go to Disney. I know that's a far extreme example, and people really don't do that. But as part of the hobby, it takes both of us to grow. And people come in, if you want to trade cards or whatever, and I'm sure people are still doing it, but it's something that if you're taking away from the vendor, you're taking away from the show, and then it hurts the show. And then what happens down the road if we don't have the shows anymore? Does that have a negative effect on the hobby as well? So and I'm not the only show. There's other shows that I've seen them advertise that do that. So this isn't new. This isn't just CNY Promotions doing it. Nobody else is doing it. It's something that, we want to keep seeing their hobby grow. I have seen some shows that are 2-day shows that on the Saturday night, they'll have a sponsor that'll come in and they'll have an area where they'll have tables set up and they allow the collectors come in and trade and sell amongst themselves. But we're only a 1-day show, so we don't offer that. It's not to say that in the future we may not. And any collectors that are watching this, I would love your feedback. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any suggestions on what we could possibly change or make it work for everybody. But at the same time, we want to protect everybody involved.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreak.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com.
We are back.
I want to even piggyback a little further. I've done a lot of shows. I've done probably a good percentage of your shows. I've done other shows. You mentioned a story where, someone maybe's negotiating with the dealer for a card and then a fellow collector comes up and sort of interrupts to say to the other collector, hey, I have that card out. I can do a lot better, right? That's just number one. That's bad etiquette. It shouldn't happen. But, etiquette exists because not everyone follows it, right? And so that's going to happen. As far as I'm aware, I've never seen it happen in front of me. I'm not saying, it wasn't done, more privately, but I've never noticed it that way. But if I had, I'm sure, how could you not be disappointed or upset about that, right? You're losing a potential sale, especially if you feel like you're pricing it fair to begin with, right? Like you're not necessarily gouging somebody too. And a lot of things you said, right? You have an onus to the dealers and the collectors both. And it's a 1-day show. Maybe if it was a 2-day show, like that's the thing. A great point by you, Lynn, is these trade nights, they're great events, right? A lot of them are sponsored by Panini and Top, but they've sort of the trade nights themselves have sort of blurred the lines of that collector dealership. We're in New York State, right? And I don't think I have to tell you this. You already know we're always number 1 or 2 in the heaviest tax states, right? And so the state wants their sales tax and all of applicable taxes that go on with putting on an event. And so there's a liability to just let people without tax numbers just do all these transactions. And I don't know whether they're reporting income or not. Only they know truly, right? But probably a percentage of these sales are not being reported. And it kind of puts you, if New York State thought this was like rampant, they could go to you and say, hey, you're allowing this, at your shows you're putting on, and can just make make life difficult for you potentially. So there's a lot of different irons in the fire, and so the only thing I said, I defended the sign. I think it's common sense when you look at it from a lot of different angles and not just be short-sighted. The only thing I said, maybe it could have been worded a little bit better, but you could say that about a lot of signs and a lot of things. That was my only thing. But as far as what it's the message it needs to convey and why it exists, I agree 100% as a dealer and as a consumer, even as a collector that just attended a show not setting up at, right? There's those lines. Sometimes I think those trade nights blur them, and in eBay too, where everyone's a seller, right? Everyone has an eBay store. Everyone has something listed on eBay. So I think that's made that stuff harder to sort of get a handle on. But go ahead, Lynn. I know you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say you were mentioning about the New York State tax number and the vendors. That's one of the things that is required to set up and sell before each show because of the advertising I do online. I get so many people that say, "Hey, I'd like to do your show. How much are tables?" And my first question is, "Do you have a New York State tax number?" And over 75% of them come back, "Oh no, I'm just a collector. I want to get rid of some stuff. I don't need a tax number." Well, New York State thinks differently. You do have to have one. And I'm in a New York State building and facility, so I need to make sure even more so that everybody is in line with that, because you never know when you might get a visit from that New York State tax collector and audit people. So I make sure everybody's got a tax number, because that's very important.
Yeah, and I can tell you something that doesn't happen at every show or in every state, because I have a couple people that I'm friends with that don't have a tax number, and they're like, "Hey, I set up at this show. I did this, I did this in sales," and I know they don't, and they just didn't. No one, said, "Hey, you need that," and so they set up. So I'm not even saying it's their fault or that they're terrible people, but some states, some states, some promoters aren't probably on top of that. Like you said, New York State likes their money. Let's be honest. They may not like me saying it in that tone or fashion, but it is what it is. And so they're going to be a little, stricter and guarded with the rules and how stuff's conducted within their confines. So, which you alluded to. So. Well, Lynn, I appreciate you coming on. Like you said, Lynn, be careful what you wish for, but any suggestions, Lynn said, hey, get a hold of them, let them know what maybe you want to see, what you don't want to see. But simply saying like the signs, stinks or stronger language, there's a reason for that. You're not trying to be a meanie or the Grinch. That's not what that's about. But again, I appreciate you coming on, and I knew the answer to that question as a dealer, but I think sometimes people need to hear that, from the person themselves. So I appreciate that. Give out where people can find CNY Promotions, what's coming down the turnpike, and what you're up to. Take your time.
Sure. So we got our 2023 shows all scheduled and ready to go. Most of them are filling up almost full. Our first one is going to be on Sunday, March 19th, which is Collector Fest 86. It's our 86th Collectors Fest show. And our next toy show is on Saturday, April 22nd. That's our Toy Fest number 3. We just started the Toy Fest, so we have much lower numbers for that. But you can get more information on our website at cnypromotions.com. There's no W's. And our Facebook page is, you can look up CNY Promotions. Our Toy Fest Facebook page is toyfest.com/Syracuse. And then we just launched this month our Instagram page, our Twitter page, and our TikTok page. No, I'm not doing any dancing or singing on TikTok, but it's something that we've launched. There's not much on those 3 pages, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. We're just launching it, so we're just kind of starting that. But those are all under CNY Promotions as well, that you can find those. And we look forward to seeing everybody out at the show. And if you have any suggestions, you have any ideas for us, you can reach me on my email address, which is collectorsfest@cnypromotions.com. And I respond to all emails. Might take me a couple days to get back to you, but I do respond. And I just want to give a shout out to Sports Card Nation for hosting and accepting SGC for the card grading submissions that will be at all of our Collectors Fest shows, all 5 of them in 2023. John Newman will be manning those stations, and that's something new. John had a lot of card submissions at the last show, and we're looking forward to having even more in 2023. It's a great service. Get your cards graded and then get them back. And SGC is one of the quickest turnaround times around.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll see John at all 5 Collectors Fest. So stop in and see him and drop those cards off and get them graded. And SGC is a very reputable company.
Yeah. I'm going to say that better myself. I'm going to have to hire you to do my ads. No, and again, before we say goodbye, it was a lot of fun. And also, kudos, hats off to SGC for allowing it to happen as such without, they had to give a thumbs up or we wouldn't have the opportunity. So it all started with them kind of giving us the green light. Like you said, we hope to continue that. I had people contact me, Lynn, after the show, like, hey, I couldn't make it, or even people at the show, like, oh man, I didn't realize you were going to be here doing this. I would have brought cards. So I think now people will kind of put 2 and 2 together and know in advance and maybe bring stuff. Usually you get better each time you do it. I even learned a few things about the process in doing it that will, the next time we do it at your next show, it'll be a little more streamlined than it even was in its debut. And for both me and the consumer as well. So I look forward to it. I look forward to the shows in general and continued success.
Thanks. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love talking about the hobby. We're here for the collectors and the vendors, and we want to see the hobby to continue to grow, which is great for everybody. It's a great hobby to be involved in. And I just want to wish everybody a happy and safe holidays. Thank you.
All right. Want to thank Lyn Lake, busy man, all the way from New Mexico, coming on, talking a little bit about what it takes to promote a show, all the things attached and need to go right for it to come out flawlessly, why he has certain things in his show to make as many people happy. The sign we talked about, the red sign on the door that went viral. I agree with his explanation. There's a reason for it. Could have been worded better, sure. We could all, do proofreading on all our writings and typings and whatnot. But at the end of the day, wants the experience to be good for the dealers like myself, the consumers that come like myself sometimes, and that's really what he strives and aims for. So. There you go. Thanks, Lynn.
Check out our website at www.sportscardnationpodcast.com for the new release schedule, our blog, all show episodes, and so much more.
That's a wrap on another edition of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Thank you to all the awesome listeners out there. Without you, there is no us. Thank you to all our great guests who drive this show, and also our wonderful sponsors who help us produce the great hobby content every week. Remember, another Hobby Quick Hits episode drops every Monday, and Sports Card Nation returns again next Friday. If you like the shows, we appreciate those positive reviews. Be well, and always remember, the hobby is the people.